There's a bunch of Batman, X-Men Red continues with number 2, tons of new number 1s from Image, and Infinity Countdown starts for real. All coming up this week. What's up, everybody? I'm Stan, and welcome to Detail Comics, where we go over comics in detail. This is Preview Picks, the show where I go over the comic books coming out on Wednesday, give you an idea what they're all about, and whether there's something you should talk to your comic book shop about or not. So make sure you subscribe to get one of these every single Monday. The first book that I want to talk about is Justice League number 40 over at DC, and this has got Christopher Priest on it. And the real reason that I want to talk about this is just because we know that Scott Snyder is going to be taking over Justice League once we come into that June-July time frame. And Christopher Priest hasn't really had an extended amount of time to tell his stories, but he's told some pretty interesting ones to begin with. So one of the things that I'd like you guys to just check out is Justice League. Give him a little bit of due because there's going to be a big change coming up in that near future. After that, we want to talk about Avengers 683, which is continuing the No Surrender storyline, which is the huge crossover that's going to be between these 3 different books that used to be going on that are going on now. And then we're going to get the debut of Avengers number 1. So there's a lot that's got to happen in the next 4 or 5 weeks in order for us to get to the conclusion of this story and set up enough for the new Avengers that's going to be debuting in May as part of Marvel Fresh Start. I haven't been reading it too much. I've been skimming it. It's one of those things where I think I'm going to go back and do a total video that just says what happened in No Surrender. Something along those lines. So that way we can hit the high points and then everybody knows exactly what's going on before we get into the brand new series. So maybe it's for you. Heading back over to DC, let's talk about Superman number 42, which is where we get the introduction of Boyzarro. So Superman and Bizarro, Jonathan Kent and Boyzarro, the opposite family of Bizarro, is going to be making its debut in Superman number 42, and it's another book that I continue to recommend to people, and it's a shame that Peter J. Tomasi is no longer going to be writing it because Brian Michael Bendis is taking over in that same time frame that Scott Snyder is going to be taking over for Justice League. So I really enjoyed Superman. It's one of those gems that I really like, and I'm not sure how I'm going to be dealing with the change. I'm always open to a new writer, but I'm going to cherish every last single story from Peter J. Tomasi before he makes his way over to a brand new book that we don't necessarily know anything about. So I always recommend Superman. So Superman number 42, one that you should be picking up. Another book that's going to be getting a change in the near future is Captain America. So Captain America 699 is going to be telling a story of Captain America in the very near future, where a lot of dystopian stuff has happened. So this is Mark Waid kind of telling his story, and we realize that it's going to be a lot shorter than we originally intended because Ta-Nehisi Coates is going to be taking over for Captain America in the near future as well, debuting on July 4th. So there's so much going on as far as changes in creative teams between DC and Marvel that you have to relish the storylines that you're in, or you can just totally not give a shit and then just not read them until they actually get a new creative team on there, and then that way you can reinvest because what's going to happen may or may not matter. Okay, just a little bit frustrated, but we'll get on to the next one, which is going to be Batman number 42, which continues with the Everyone Loves Ivy story arc. So this had a really interesting opening because essentially Ivy has already achieved her goal, and it is going to be Batman and Catwoman fighting against everybody else in the world to try and take back control of themselves and restore free will. And in this one, based on the cover from Mikhail Janin, we see Batman and Catwoman going up against the members of the Justice League that were taken over by Ivy, which is a really interesting concept because if you're talking about somebody with their mental faculties like Superman or Wonder Woman and their entire capabilities, that could be a really fucked up situation. However, if you're talking about somebody that's been mind controlled and it's Poison Ivy trying to delegate the actions of these individuals, that might be something completely different. So I'm interested to see what Tom King does with that concept. Heading over into independent books, we've got The Fix number 11 from Nick Spencer and Steve Lieber, and it's been a really fun, kind of trashy, not necessarily trashy in the sense that it's been bad, but, you know, dealing with drugs and corrupt cops and Los Angeles and all that kind of stuff. It's been a really interesting perspective on those things from Nick Spencer and Steve Lieber in a very comedic, dark comedy kind of way. So I've always enjoyed it. The thing is that because of hiatuses and that kind of stuff, I'm kind of lost interest in the storyline. It's one that I'm going to be picking up to see if it can get me reinvigorated and reinterested in the series, but my hopes aren't necessarily super high, especially with all the new stuff coming out to garner my interest, you know, shiny things. Speaking of shiny things, let's talk about Amazing Spider-Man number 797, which is going to be the Going Down Swinging arc, which is the last arc of Dan Slott on Amazing Spider-Man. For some people, that's a sad thing. For some people, that's not such a sad thing, as he kind of makes his way over to Iron Man. But either way, we saw the setup of the Red Goblin, the combination of the Goblin Serum, which was expunged, the nanites were expunged from his body. We'll go over that in an entire storyline kind of issue. But the key is, we're going to be seeing the Red Goblin, we're going to be seeing Peter Parker before we get the takeover from Nick Spencer and Ryan Ottley that's going to be happening again in that May, June, July timeframe. This is going to be his last one, so he better make it good. Are your hopes high? let's talk about it in the comments below, because I get the insinuation that some people are really, they're not high on this one. So I'm excited to see what you guys can talk about down there. However, there is a book that I have been really enjoying, and that's Batman White Knight #6. I have talked about it I've talked about it in a few different ways. The way that I really talk about it is it's more like a wave, like it's, you got high tide, you got low tide. So there's a lot of really fantastic art mixed with heavy, dense pages of story and exposition and explanation. So it's kind of like a push-pull, 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 where you get a variety of different interactions. It's made for some interesting storytelling, not necessarily the most favorable when it comes to those situations, but I always like Sean Gordon Murphy's art, and it's been a fantastic book. You got to pick up the variant covers. Half the variant covers just make it worthwhile, and this one of, his version of Batgirl and Nightwing on his motorcycle is another just kind of like really stellar alternate cover for the main title. So it's a book that I always recommend, one that you're probably going to have a much better time reading in trade, but you're going to miss out on all these great covers if you don't pick them up now. Another book that might read a little bit better in trade, though, is also Doctor Strange Damnation, which gets into issue #2. So it had an issue in Doctor Strange #385 last week, which, man, I wasn't super hot on. The change in the artist, the change in the storytelling, the fact that they had Mighty Thor coming in and just bashing Doctor Strange in the legs, it kind of set me on the wrong tone, so I wasn't sure what kind of situation Donny Cates was supposed to be putting this book in, but he channeled a little bit of his, inner casino movie type stuff into there as he was kind of breaking his legs and, breaking people's fingers with a ball-peen hammer kind of stuff. So I'm not sure where he's really going with this as far as that kind of stuff, and it kind of threw me off for it. So I'm not as excited for Damnation #2 as I was after Damnation #1. So I'm interested to see where this goes. I'm not 100% on it, but I'm willing to give it this next issue to see if it can kind of recapture me, especially considering the announcement that Mark Waid is going to be writing Doctor Strange, and this stuff might not necessarily matter. But I'm always in for a good storyline. The question is it still a good storyline? A book that I'm pretty sure is a good storyline is X-Men Red #2, which is coming out this week. And man, X-Men Red #1, I was a really huge fan of where this kind of came from. It had a really good voice, it had a really good message, and Tom Taylor writes these characters really well, especially if you read All New Wolverine #31 last week, where you had Gabby, Honey Badger, the little Wolverine clone of Laura, teaming up with Deadpool. There was laugh out loud moments in that, so the seriousness of X-Men Red kind of counterpointed with the kind of tonations, the possible humor that goes along with it. I'm really excited for where this has the potential to go. The setup for it, just kind of turning the world against mutants to begin with the introduction of Cassandra Nova was a little bit weird, but I'm interested for the first story arc to see exactly where it goes, but it feels like the X-Men book with the most potential out of all of them. Next, we can talk about brand new #1s, and we get Shade the Changing Woman, which is fresh off of the JLA Doom Patrol crossover with Milk Wars. So is this book going to be kind of sour? I don't necessarily know, because Shade has always been a very odd, very weird situation. The book itself is kind of like stemmed in this whole kind of cosmic alien embodiment, and now is the alien still there? Is she freed from her forms? How is she dealing with this kind of insane emotional spectrum that's been unleashed in her after the episodes of Milk Wars? I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to pick it up. I've always been a fan of Young Animal, but this has been one of the books that's toughest for me to grasp or really get into. For those of you that are fans of Shade, I'm sure it's just going to be more of the same, but it's one of those things where if you're interested to see where these new books come from for JLA Doom Patrol after the crossover, this is going to be your first interaction with them, so pick it up. We also have some brand new #1s that are coming out from Image. So you have Prism Stalker #1, which has this really bright and colorful cover and a description that doesn't really tell me much about what's going to really happen in this. So it's one of those things where it's like, I will take a look at it and I will see if it's something that I want to buy, but I have no guarantees regarding what it's going to be about and whether it's something for everybody. However, when you take a look at Oblivion Song #1, written by Robert Kirkman from Walking Dead fame, is one of the most reordered books out of all the advance orders. It looks like it's going to have this kind of rock star debut, which is weird because The Walking Dead never really had a rock star kind of debut, which is how it gained a lot of its popularity and its value in the aftermarket. So when you're talking about Oblivion Song, I'm sure it's going to be a very interesting story because it's not necessarily as long in the tooth as Walking Dead, but you don't really know. It's one of those things where I'm going to be checking it out. I'm probably going to be doing a review on it so that way you guys know exactly what you're getting into. Another one that I want to talk about from Image is Gideon Falls #1, which combines Jeff Lemire and Andrea Sorrentino. And man, this combination did such a good job on Old Man Logan that I can't wait to see what they do in this kind of like supernatural small town setting. It looks to be really interesting. The art style is fantastic, and I can't wait to kind of immerse myself in this whole atmosphere of this comic book. So it's one of the books that I'm definitely going to recommend, and I'm definitely going to be doing a review, and I'm definitely saying definitely too much. Man, I gotta get rid of that goddamn word. So it's one of those things where I'm checking it out, you should be checking it out, and then we can both talk about it together when I post the review later on the week. Then to finish things up, we're going to go through a book that I'm going to be talking about for quite some time, it seems, and that is going to be Infinity Countdown. So the Infinity Stones have made their resurgence into the Marvel Universe. And then on top of that, we had Infinity Countdown Prime, where we know who has them all. The special debut of Ultron grabbing the Soul Stone through the heart of Magus, and all this kind of stuff. The Super Skrull having the Time Stone. There's just so much going on, and you're wondering what are the Infinity Stones going to play for a role inside the current Marvel continuity, especially considering what happened just with Marvel Fresh Start. So is this going to be the lead-in that transforms the world into the Fresh Start world? Do we really know about that? Why do we need so many issues of Darkhawk? These are questions that everybody wants the answer to, and hopefully Infinity Countdown #1 is going to give us a little bit of hint at the answers. But I want to know what you guys are picking up this week. I want to know what you guys think about the books that are coming out, so hit me up in the comments down below and we can start that conversation. As always, if you like what you see, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books, comic book movies, comic book TV shows and games, and anything and everything inside the world of comics.